Unfortunately, most of the fair is now gone. Partly due to the fact that at the time there was a depression going on and most of the buildings were built rather cheaply. Also because a fire had destroyed a lot of them. And it was widely believed that this fire was started by arsons who were working with the Pullman strikes that were going on at this time.
The unemployment rate soared. People were rioting over this. The Pullman Company cut wages by 28%. 28%. I don't blame them.
The Pullman Palace Car Company. It actually started off really well. Mr. Pullman, he actually paid a lot of his workers extremely well. They were living like kings. Then panic hit and most of that pay went away.
And not only did they cut wages by 28%, but they kept the prices of living in their apartments the same.
As you could expect, people just stopped working. The railway union got involved and people just didn't want to deal with the Pullman railway system. Then after a while, the railroad business started to go down and the government was just getting really annoyed.
They sent in the army to help. Not because of any of the railroads, though, because they interrupted the postal service. So they claim.
The army only angered the strikers more. I mean, over the course of the whole thing, 13 people were killed. Even when you think it's over, even when it was officially over, it wasn't over.
When he died, Mr. Pullman was buried in a steel-reinforced casket in tons of concrete. They thought someone was going to try to desecrate the body or something. Now where did they get that idea?
We have a new Postmaster General, a man by the name of William L. Wilson. George B. Selden was issued a patent for something called an automobile. Oscar Hammerstein opened the Olympia Theater. This is the first theater to be built in New York City's Times Square district. Well, the Treasury was running out of money, so a businessman by the name of J.P. Morgan came along and gave them $65 million worth of gold. This helped bring them out of the trouble they were in, but unfortunately it ruined Cleveland's image with the farmers. We have another new state, and it is called Utah. In government news, the New York legislature passed a law which forbids the selling of alcohol in hotels on Sundays. In economics, Charles Dow published the Dow Jones Industrial Average. This report shows the performance of the stock market. Finally, world-renowned composer John Philip Sousa has published a new song today. It is called The Stars and Stripes Forever.
So the miners went on strike. The miners struck, and the United Mine Workers Union got 8-hour workdays.
Author Mark Twain denied rumors that he died today. Boston opened up its new subway system, which is an underground train that brings passengers to their destinations without ever being noticed by the streets above. A gold rush in the Klondike Valley is attracting thousands in hopes of striking it rich.
While some were looking for gold, others were murdering innocent miners. On September 10th, 1896, a bunch of policemen opened fire on innocent miners who were striking because of underpayment and horrible working conditions.
Basically what happened was, the sheriff said there was to be no more striking in his county, but the strikes continued, so he had to take violent steps.
What's worse is they were Central European miners. So, with 19 dead, it makes it the worst massacre of Central Europeans in the United States.
Breaking news! The battleship USS Maine has been destroyed in an explosion while in Havana. There are over 250 reported deaths involved, and no reason for the explosion has been named, although it is suspected that Spain may be involved.
Remember the Maine! To hell with Spain!
The bombing of the USS Maine had caused a lot of the anger that had been building up over the Spanish's lack of effort to quell the riots in Cuba to boil over. Now, there's a lot of controversy about the sinking of the Maine itself, but what is clear is that this was the start of the Spanish-American War, which was a relatively short war, starting in April of 1898 and ending in December of the same year with the signing of the Treaty of Paris. But it was a very important war because it helped to ease some of the tensions that had been left around from the Civil War, seeing as this was a war against a foreign entity instead of the country against itself. It also marked the end of the Panic of 1893 and gave one of its war heroes great popularity, a man by the name of Theodore Roosevelt.
That Spanish War had sent newspaper sales through the roof. However, after it was all over, nobody wanted to buy newspapers anymore. So, the newspapers decreased their pay to the newspaper boys. But the newspaper boys went on strike, and they were very successful.
The Trans-Mississippi Exposition was rather dull, except for a speech given by William McKinley on October 12th, President's Day at the fair. This speech was about how the United States is no longer going to be an isolationist country, and it really touched upon the theme of the fair, which was world unity. Well, the end of the century is upon us, and as we go into the new one, I hope that these last 10 years have changed something. They were filled with massacres, depression, strikes, and war, but it was also a decade of new inventions and a new way of seeing things. We now have major corporations to serve the people, and unions to keep those corporations from simply serving themselves. It was a decade that I think future generations can look on for inspiration, hope, or just a few laughs. Well, that's it for our report, and for the 1890s as well. I'm Walter Jennings, wishing you a good night, and a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.